Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here, as always, for Week 15. My friend Connor Allen, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah, not a whole lot. It's finally came back down to earth a little bit with my official plays last week, while you, I think, just absolutely curb stomped the slate. It was awesome to see. I know people were cashing like alt longest parlays and the longest round robins, and it is awesome. I love to see it, but it's just great. It's like anytime any of us have like even a tiny bad week, someone else in our group crushes it, and we balance each other out, and everyone still makes money. So love to see that.
So win in the end, right? For subscribers, I mean, obviously we all doing this for ourselves as well. Want to make money. We put down the money, the plays that we're playing that and then some. So we obviously want to be profitable, but it's obviously great to see the subscribers in the chat make a ton of money. And yeah, you've been carrying the water for this duo all season. Luckily, we're not just a duo now. We do have an expanded team, and that helps quite a bit. So yeah, I was happy to pull my weight finally for a little bit. So it felt good to go 8-0, clean the board, and then I think we're having some fun with the longest plays. There's actually been a bunch of official plays, and I got a little greedy week before. I think 6 or 7 on a parlay. Cut it down to 5 legs this week. Didn't count any of the official longest plays in there too because I didn't want to die twice. And we hit a nice little 21-1 parlay as well. So it was a nice, definitely my most profitable week of the year. So it feels good. Hit the ground running in December, and we're going to keep it going. We're on the other side of the buys, Connor. Everyone's played. I think, contextualizing things now to getting forward. This is the meat and potatoes of the season. This is when the rubber meets the road. 4 games left for all these teams. Playoff pictures kind of taking shape. We're going to dig into that here a little bit today. We're going to touch on some futures at the top. Excited in the middle of the show to be joined by one of the co-founders and the CEO of Pick6, who, we've been seeing us talk about that a little bit more. Dean Susan going to be jumping in here in the middle of the show. So if you're watching on YouTube or listen to podcast, someone jumps in randomly in the middle. That is going to be Dean from Pick6. We're going to talk a little bit more about betting exchanges, their unique place in the marketplace, and really why we think that they're something that you need to consider, especially if you're betting sides and totals. So stick around for that here shortly. So again, 2 episodes of Move the Line each week. This is more, games, football overview, prop drop on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern on the 4 Bets YouTube channel. Move the Line wherever you listen to podcasts. So come back if you want to get the picks and parlays and milli parlays and stuff that we're going to be doing with High Slop there on Friday afternoon. We're going to touch more on Pick6 here, but let's jump into it, Connor, before we get into stuff with Dean here. I think we need to be having these future conversations as we get closer to the season, because I think, this is when the decisions get made. This is when the narratives get stronger. This is when you have MVP type moments, type performances. These markets can move quite a bit. We have some pretty strong chalk out there. So let's just lead the conversation wherever you want to take it. Player related, Super Bowl related. I think to make the playoff stuff is kind of dried up, because even though we have 4 weeks left, those are kind of narrowing markets, but take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I guess we can start at the top with like MVP and Super Bowl. I think makes sense here because they're kind of tied together. We have right now Josh Allen minus 400 to win MVP, which is really interesting considering he lost last week and went from like minus 250 to minus 400, but just played so well, threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for 3 touchdowns. It was like a true MVP moment if they somehow won the game. They obviously did not, which matters to an extent, but I think Bills plus 700 to win the Super Bowl is also interesting as well. I think that they're equal or as good as basically every other team this week or this year. And you're getting 7-1. Obviously they would have to go through Kansas City, which at this point seems like almost a certainty at this point. So I think those are a little bit related. I don't know if I would love to play minus 400 on an MVP candidate, but when you go through the scenarios here, like, how does anyone else win? Like, barring
that's what I want to ask you. That was my only MVP question, was like, talk me through scenarios where it's not Josh Allen now. I think it gets harder to do that.
Yeah. And so I guess my only scenario is this week, and I've been pushing back against this all year, like Jared Goff throws for 404 touchdowns and Josh Allen loses and doesn't really play all that well. I don't really see that as super likely. But you're getting like 13-1, I think 17-1 on FanDuel was at one point. And so It's tough though for me to envision too many scenarios, because even if he does lose, he probably just, again, curb stomps teams the last 3 games and then probably just climbs back up to being the MVP favorite, because no one else is really worthy this year, it seems like.
In that scenario, I do think you probably see Josh get shorter, and you see Goff get shorter. I mean, he gets a little, yeah. I mean, so he probably becomes minus 200, and you see Goff get down to like 5-1, or maybe where Saquon is, right? That's kind of the only thing that could possibly happen. I don't think you're going to see the flippening that we saw last year with like Brock Purdy, right? And that like game against the Ravens late in the season. So we've kind of been poo-pooing Patrick Mahomes the entire time. I think it's still definitely unlikely. We have a quarterback, arguably one of the best of all time, who's currently in a 1-loss season, who is 40-1 in some shops to win the MVP. Actually, basically across the board. What's the path for Mahomes at this point? Obviously, it's not a statistically like Mahomesian season. This like winning by 2 points against all of your divisional opponents at home thing is kind of wild. But there needs to probably be, and maybe I'm wrong about this, you would think a 16-1 Chiefs team who's a defending Super Bowl champs probably need to be represented somewhere in the awards market. Not necessarily, but there's only so many of them. But like, should Mahomes be 40 at this point?
Probably not 40. I feel like, we talk about like LCLV, which is like losing closing line value.
Oh, love it.
Like, I feel like Goff probably qualifies as that. Like you mentioned, like he's going to get shorter. I think that. And I think same with Mahomes. Like, say Mahomes wins out, probably closes like, I don't know, again, 10-1, 8-1, 7-1. So yeah, you got in at 40. You're buying down to that. But like, what scenarios? He has to win out. Josh Allen probably have to lose 2 games. Goff would have to continue running the ball. And Lamar maybe has another hiccup. And then at that point where they're like, well, I guess they're 16-1. We don't have anyone else to vote for. So I guess Mahomes. And even then, I bet some voters will be like, no, Josh Allen's stats, or, Lamar Jackson's stats, or maybe somehow Saquon in that scenario. Again, like if for some reason if he keeps crushing down the stretch. So yeah, I mean, I've made worse bets at 40-1. Like, you're probably going to get value on it, but does it really have a chance of winning? I don't know. I think that's like, it's just such a slim, narrow path, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's fair. It just jumps off the screen and you look at it and you're like, man, they have lost one time again to the Bills. And we don't think that like they're necessarily the juggernaut that a 1-loss team would reflect in the market and all those things. But again, like, it is one of these scenarios is very interesting to see. Mahomes at 40, you have a minus 400 on Josh Allen, and they have 2 more losses. Yes, they won head-to-head. Scheduled down the stretch, though, I mean, on the other side of this Lions game this week, it's the Jets and the Pats twice, right? Like, so Josh Allen doesn't really have any tests behind him. This is kind of it. So it does feel like a pretty important week for the MVP market. If Goff is going to get in the mix, he does have the Chicago game on deck. It's getting colder in Chicago, so we are going to have the Goff test that you called out in the summer. It's like, hey, that Week 16 game in Chicago for Goff and company, though that Bears pass defense is not where it was early in the season either. It's softening up a little bit. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. But I kind of do think it is those 3 kind of. I mean, Lamar is definitely in the mix still, but anything behind it, Sam Darnold, probably too long, but in the sense of like the LCLV model that you're talking about, not an actual true winner, unless they go out and like their schedule is pretty tough actually down the stretch, because they have Chicago this week, but then at Seattle, Green Bay, at Detroit. That Detroit game in Week 18 could matter for both of those teams. So it's a scenario where all of a sudden, if that does matter and they basically go 15-2 and they win the division, that could be really, really interesting. Now, does that still make him a better case than Josh Allen? Maybe not. Again, could be a scenario where your 60 ticket on Darnold gets down to 15, and you have that warm CLV, but not an actual winner. Yeah, I also agree with you on the Bills. 7-1 to win the Super Bowl feels like a fairly solid price comparatively, considering that I don't think that they're way worse than really. I can't really say with confidence that any of these teams above them are better. So you're getting the longest odds basically of that top 4 group maybe a gap between the Ravens and Vikings and Packers that are kind of next on the board. But I'm with you. 7-1 on DraftKings for the Bills, I think is pretty interesting in the Super Bowl market this late in the year, right? When we know kind of what these teams are.
Right.
I think that one's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm into it. I think that's still kind of the only one in the Super Bowl market that really stood out to me specifically. I mean, unless you're trying to get a little crazy down the board with your team Seattle there, who I think could make the playoffs. I mean, 65-1. I don't know if they're really Super Bowl contender, but like, could they make the playoffs? Could they win a game? Sure. You can definitely convince me of that. I'm not sure that they can go toe to toe with anyone else in the NFC in terms of like Philly, Detroit. I mean, even any of the NFC North teams, really, for the most part. That's where I kind of struggle. So I guess, again, value maybe because they're going to make the playoffs, but I would prefer to go with them to coach of the year if we want to move to that market real quick.
Agreed.
Mike McDonald, 20-1 to me is really surprising because we talk about this every year. It's like, it's a lot of this award is more about expectations or performance relative to expectations, not necessarily just like total output. So obviously Dan Campbell crushing right now, -140 in the market. Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings have greatly outperformed expectations as well. But you have a Seattle team that's projected to come in third, I believe, by the preseason odds, now winning their division. And I mean, they're game up. They're able to probably win this division. 20-1 for a guy like Mike McDonald, I think is pretty interesting. If they can pull it out. And I think that they can. I mean, I don't think it's like a crazy path, but like there's a lot of good candidates this year, which makes me kind of, I don't know, stutter a little bit here.
Yeah, I think it is the best value on the board comparatively. And, to your point earlier about the playoffs, even with them, like we're going to kind of get some of those answers here in the coming weeks because their next couple of games are against the NFC North. They host Green Bay and Minnesota the next 2 weeks. Then they are on the road in Chicago before on the road against the Rams to wrap up in a game that could matter depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I mean, look, all the things that we thought, or definitely, I think you were pro Seattle as well. I was banging the drum, especially for what I thought would happen defensively has started to happen. Part of it was the cluster injuries they went through early in the season. Now they're kind of on the other side of it. The Ernest Jones trade, I think, was fantastic. Getting Tyrese Knight in there, but that run defense was terrible. I know people will tell you, linebackers don't matter, like running backs don't matter, but I think like anything on the tails, when you have extremes, they matter. I think Ernest Jones in the short period of time has proven to be one of the best run stopping linebackers in the league. And he's been awesome. And that's what Tyrese Knight was at UTEP in college. And all of a sudden I think since they acquired Ernest Jones, they're like top 3 in success rate and EPA against the run. They were a sieve early in the season. So yeah, I mean, they're very exciting. I think that's the best way to go after Seattle is, 18s, 20s on Mike McDonald. The other coach of the year one that's really interesting is Mike Tomlin's never won the award. They are 10-3. The schedule still remains very difficult. Look, we come on here and I'll own it. I come on here every week like a bozo and just want to tell you why I don't think Pittsburgh's very good. And they just win. They're 10-3. I have no really rope to hold on to anymore. It'll tell you that they cannot make the playoffs or that they're not a playoff team. They're going to the playoffs. It is happening. Tomlin's never won the award. He's obviously very well respected, more so than any of the awards. Feels like a narrative-driven award. I think the fact that he's never won matters quite a bit here as well. So those would be the 2 looks for me in the Coach of the Year market. Again, part of it that I run up against here, again, is the schedule. At Philly, at Baltimore the next 2 weeks, Kansas City, Cincinnati, right? Cincinnati's obviously a little bit easier, but they're obviously frisky. They're going to play out the stretch. It's not like week 18 Cincinnati is going to be laying down for anybody. So they're going to get full Burrow, Chase, Higgins experience. Obviously, Pittsburgh gets the defense on the other side as well to go ahead and take advantage of that as everyone else has done. But, definitely the hardest schedule remaining on the board. But again, 10-3 right now. They win a couple of those games. That only solidifies Tomlin in the market, I think. So those are kind of the interesting ones to me that I think are probably worth your money if you're looking to kind of speculate on this market.
Yeah, no, I like that one. That's a good call out there. And it leads me into another market that I think depends on how the Steelers do. And that's Defensive Player of the Year with Watt right now. He's, I would say, a reasonable favorite at this point. And when you're looking at this market, though, Defensive Player of the Year, yeah, we're seeing -220 across the board. I think there's a little bit kind of like who else in the market, but at the same time, like they could easily lose out. That puts them, at 10-7. I think in this spot. And then he's also like not leading the league in really anything. He's just like the best player on a good defense that's winning a lot of games. And so I know we've talked about other guys here, but who stood out to me on the board, you've talked about Neil Hunter a couple times. He's 22-1. I think that's a little bit interesting. Jonathan Grenard, I mean, any interest there from the Vikings? Isn't he? He's like near the top of the league in sacks. He's 50-1. Plays on a Minnesota team that, I mean, has a better record than Pittsburgh, or as good, I believe, and could wind up with more wins. Doesn't have quite the household name. And then one other one that I thought was a little bit interesting down the board, Nick Bonito, 40-1. I mean, like again, Denver, like it's tough because Denver probably won't end up with as many wins as the Steelers will, but they can come close. And like, I mean, I think all those guys were in range to like lead the league in sacks. And if they're winning as many games, I think it could change the narrative a little bit. I don't know. I'm not necessarily out of my lane, but I don't know as much defensively as you do. But those were like my takes here that I think down the board could make sense. But I don't know. I'm interested to hear if you're like, oh, like, no, it's just Watts award, even though he's minus 220.
No, I think he should be the favorite. I think that's fair. But I think you set it up perfectly. Like he's, the household name on a defense that's performing very well on what will be a playoff team. So, and those are kind of the prerequisites essentially. You can cross Myles Garrett off the list, who's as short as 12-1, because the Browns are terrible. There's really no path for, you've just seen it. It's just not, there's not really a precedent for that to happen unless he's out breaking the all-time sack record, right? You just have to have like a massively statistical outlier season for, a guy on a losing team to go ahead and do that. The cornerbacks or any safeties, same thing, like Patrick Surtain, Xavier McKinney, Kirby Joseph, those guys are all okay. I don't think they're true defensive player of the year candidates. They'd have to have a moment that they haven't had yet. You'd have to have like a massive interception for Surtain this weekend against the Colts or something, or a pick six in a high leverage moment that you can wrap up a game for them and solidify their playoff spot. Like none of those things are really happening. McKinney has got a bunch of interceptions. Same thing with Kirby Joseph. Kirby Joseph is nowhere near the best safety on his own team. So that's a tough sell for me. I still think that there's viability on Danielle Hunter, but to your point, I like the Grenard call out. Andrew Van Ginkel in the same boat where they're part of this dynamic blitz happy defense that's going on in Minnesota. That's been a huge part of their success this year. Whoever kind of can come out on top of the sack race is interesting. They get the Bears this week, so they should both probably add to their numbers, which is going to be very interesting to see. So that is something that bodes well for them, which is why they're interesting. The one name that jumped out, and FanDuel had a 40 as of this morning. And the sell is kind of tough from like a raw statistical standpoint, but Chris Jones is having a hell of a year. Best defensive player on a elite defense that, even though he's not getting home and putting up gaudy sack numbers, that guy they put him in the middle of the line and you can't run on him. And they just move him outside on clear passing downs as an edge rusher who weighs like 60 pounds more than the rest of these edge rushers. And the guy wins as if he's this just like uber elite, small, little fast. He's just kind of unfair. He's a freak. He's awesome. So it could be another one of these like career awards where there's not a really clear defined runaway dude. And Chris Jones has been awesome for a very long time and has never won the award. At 40, it's pretty interesting. So that's kind of my favorite current price on the board. The other one that's interesting too, and it's the anti-Watt, is Cam Hayward, his own teammate, who has been like just as impactful in like the raw sack market. Another lifetime achievement award. He's an Hall of Famer who doesn't have one of these in his mantle, who's a part of this really strong Steelers defense, who's put up more counting stats than even TJ Watt. So that one's interesting if you want to have like a Steelers angle. I think those are, interior defensive linemen don't historically win this award very often, but I'm trying to make the case for two of them at price, right? A 40 and a 50 down the board, because to your point, I don't think there's any clear runaway at this point. Watt's kind of just a bad chalk.
Yeah, no, I like that. Those are some good angles. I just loaded up FanDuel and ripped a couple of those. Just a couple, flyers, I think, down the board are fun. A couple of sprinkles, $25 to win $1,000. I mean, that's, again, something like that could easily happen. And, it's worth a little bit of money there, I think.
Good tickets to have at this time of year.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think we stay in the defensive market here real quick. Defensive rookie of the year. Why is Jared Verse minus 105 and Fisk 40-1 when Fisk has more sacks?
It's a good question. I mean, if you just look at pressure rates, pass rush, win rates, all those things versus lapping the field,
Probably way better. Yeah.
it's been awesome. So I think that's probably a piece of it. But yeah, to see like, MGM, who conveniently is only going to let you bet $20 on it anyway, has an off-price market at 30 here on Fisk, which I think is interesting. Verse is, I don't know. I don't know if he's good chalk. No one else has really stepped up. The case is like, Chop Robinson and Leatu Latu are playing really well. If just one of them kind of goes on a little hot streak here at the end and just compile some sacks because no one else is really running away with it, Verse is not going to be probably part of like a defensive playoff team, right? So that helps him, or helps some of these other guys down the board. I guess that's your angle for Quinyon Mitchell, who's playing really good football. Part of the secondary that's flipped the switch here in the second half with Philadelphia. But still, like, what's the case? I mean, again, you would feel like he would need a moment, whereas these other pass rushers have a chance to compile some, headlining sacks or something like that. So, yeah, it's a really interesting market. I think there's going to be some value here down the board. I don't even really know where it is. It's kind of something I don't have any strong opinions on right now.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I feel like it's kind of a tough market there. Something that I do have a strong opinion on, I think, is that I hate to say it because I've been a bit of a hater, but I think that in the offensive rookie of the year market, Jaden Daniels actually might be underpriced in the offensive rookie of the year market, which is interesting because they play the Saints, Eagles, then they have Falcons, Cowboys finish off the year. I mean, pretty weak in 3 or 4 games. Like, I think that he probably has 3 fairly good games. Meanwhile, Bo Nix has the Colts, which is not, that hard, but then he has the Chargers and the Chiefs and then the Bengals, which not a good defense, but they probably lose that game, I would say, or it's, close to 50-50. So again, if Bo Nix loses 2 or 3 of those games, Jaden Daniels wins 3, has 3 good games. I just see that as like a significantly much more likely outcome. And I've been on Team Bowers. I mean, he basically needed to go off every game. He had kind of a down week last week. So like,
yeah,
it's just a real tough case for him at this point. But anyone else stand out to you in that market as we wrap up the futures here?
No, it's just looking at the board, it's a strong rookie class offensively, right? I mean, you go further down the board, and obviously the Giants are unmitigated disaster of a franchise, but like Malik Neighbors has been really good, and definitely been the only chance that team has had out of pulse. So he's out and dead, but this is just a strong rookie class. We've had some really, Ladd McConkey's had a really nice little second half here, a little maybe slower start, but I think in other years, maybe he's viable. It's obviously very tough when you're going up against 3 quarterbacks that got the ball from day one. It's just going to be really hard to beat that guy, even if you have a historical outlier of a season like Brock Bowers had. So I thought the Bowers angle was fantastic. I think you're right. He probably laying an egg last week a little bit. Makes it an uphill battle. Like, he's probably going to have to go out and go bonkers for the last few games. That's hard to see. But I'm with you. I think that the movement on Daniels and Bo Nix comparatively, I think, is maybe gotten a little too tight, where Daniels gets really interesting, especially with the schedule. Probably getting healthy coming out of the bye, and they feel like they maybe found something and maybe hit the ground running a little bit here down the stretch, offensively at least. So, yeah, I think he's probably the right play. I don't know if I want to advise laying 275 or so on it, but I'm definitely not chasing Bo Nix at 2-1.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Historically, we're going to look back on this award and be like, what happened to Drake May? Like,
you're right.
Wasn't even,
yeah, exactly. Let's say, like, if they won games, he would be very squarely in the mix, but the rest of the team just sucks. So, I mean, not his fault.
And he missed starts at the beginning of the year, right? Well,
yeah.
Jane Daniels going bonkers. Drake May still holding the clipboard.
Yeah, he was riding some pine. Last one that I have any takes on, comeback player of the year. I think I was curious, like, do we think Burrow should be even like higher? Like, I don't know if that's a crazy take. He's minus 300. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs, so he's not really in like contention for anything else.
Right.
But he's like putting up like crazy counting stats, like, just doing insane stuff. So like, I feel like he has to win something, right? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But like, and then there's not really any other like comeback player of the years that I think are really viable. I mean, maybe Anthony Richardson, if they make the playoffs, could make a little run here. But again, like Joe Burrow is just playing like next level. The defense is just trash. So
I'm watching that game the other night, and it like riled my brain. I'm like, every year I come on and we're doing the preseason next year too. And I'm very pro Bengals and I'm very anti Ravens. And I'm like, why does that continue to happen? And it's like, oh, these two dudes show up and ball out all the time. Watching Jamar Chase like run around, or, like everyone knows where the ball is going, and it just doesn't matter. He is an absolute alpha. It's just really fun to watch. So my only question is, and I've started to see some discussion around this. What about Damar Hamlin? Like, is there like room? Did he miss the window? Right? Is there like a time where that expired, where he's coming back? He's no longer coming back from the dead. He's already come back from the dead, so he can't be eligible for this year's comeback player of the year award. Whereas only last year was his window to win it, even though he didn't play football last year. I guess this is just such a messy award in terms of what they put around boundaries and what we're supposed to be having these like things that we can and can't do now. What are your thoughts on Hamlin?
yeah, I mean, I just bet a little bit. It's like 22-1 FanDuel MGM. I think that it's a viable look. Like, I feel like we just have no idea what's going to go on in the mind of the voters with the new restrictions and guidance, I guess is what they said. It feels like some of them might just go off the cuff or just like do what everyone else is doing because they don't want, something like last year to happen. I think where they got kind of a lot of flack for all that. So I think it's worth a sprinkle at 22-1. Otherwise, I think Burrow's kind of the only one that's viable in my opinion. Everyone else just really hasn't played well enough or doesn't really have a path. So I think it would kind of take something like crazy, like just a random like mentality shift, I guess, in the last part of the year of like, hey, Damar Hamlin played really well. The media starts picking it up, all those things. So
yeah, they play the Lions this week. Lions give up a ton of tackles to the safety position. Damar Hamlin goes out and has 10 tackles this week. The Bills win, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't know. At 22 again, LCLV. Who knows? So
love it.
All right, keep coming back. We're going to talk futures more and more as we get closer to the end of the season. We're going to shift gears now. Super excited to bring on our guest we touched on here at the very, very top of the show. It is a co-founder and CEO of Pick6. Again, if you've been hanging out with us, we're talking about it a lot lately. We are believers, and hopefully this gentleman can continue to help you, the listener, believe to be believers to get on board as well. It is Dean Susan. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. Your time is valuable, and we want to make sure we maximize this today. Got a handful of questions, but anything else too you want to share that you think the listeners need to know about? Connor and I have been sharing it on screen every week moving forward because I don't know, price matters to us. I think price matters. I think a lot to our audience. But I guess let's just start back a little bit more of the origin story. How did we get here? Tell us a little bit about how it started. What was the brainchild? And
Yeah. First of all, again, thanks for having me on. I'm very happy with our partnership so far. Like I said to you guys early on, I'd only want to do something with a group if it makes sense. And clearly your guys, I'll say, vision aligns with ours. So we've been happy so far. But how do we get here? I'm trying to think about where I want to begin. I can start in high school when my dad introduced me to pick'em pools, and that's how I got into sports betting and gambling. Maybe I'll save that story for another time. And then I could also start in college, moving from that to real betting when I really picked this up and really got into this. Or if we want to. For the sake of time, I can start with us moving out to the UK, my co-founder and I, to start this because regulation in the US was non-existent. When it did exist, it was too expensive. So we only had really one alternative, and that was to move out there. Basically, the way we got to where we are now is by making a lot of mistakes and learning that price does matter at the end of the day, that people do want a change. So where we're at now is we're in 40 some odd states. You can use our exchange in any of those states as you would for whatever other entertainment platforms that you use, right? And obviously our thesis is price matters to people. You can get as much action down as you'd like, and we try to make it as simple as possible. So we understand that it's different. We understand there's going to be a learning curve, but anytime a user comes onto the site, we've got 30 seconds to grab someone's attention and show them that this is worth their while. And since we relaunched in August, things have been going really well. And I've been happy with the progress, but happy to chat about whatever's on your guys' minds.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we first discussed and heard about this when you guys, launched through the more traditional market, and we're in New Jersey, and like, man, this feels like the way, right? This is the future. And again, as you talk about going to the UK, exchanges are just way more commonplace for that audience. It's a little bit untraditional for what we see stateside, but I know that Connor and I want to do our weight, what we could do to carry our weight to make this more commonplace, because I feel like it's the future. If it can grab on, I think peer-to-peer gaming, eliminating the middleman, getting better prices is just kind of the right way to do this. If you're betting seriously, if you're trying to scale what you're doing, the only way, anything you could do to reduce the VIG and the friction in winning long-term is to get better prices. And that is the model that you guys have. So Connor, I know you had a question or two.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to hear from your angle, because we come in here and talk about it every week, like kind of just the unique selling points of ProfitX, and like what, like, why would he, essentially should someone play on ProfitX versus anywhere else? And, I think we have our own answers to that, with it, being price, with it being just user experience, availability, things like that. But from your own words, I'd love to hear kind of what you envision, as the unique selling points for ProfitX.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love having you guys talk about it, because it's raw and organic, right? Like, you guys are users of the site. So it normally resonates with people a little more coming from actual users. But that being said, something that I've told my team a lot, and something that our team focuses on, is building a philosophy, not a product, is almost the best way to think of it. Because when you come to our site, it almost looks and feels too good to be true. And people are taught that things that are too good to be true are too good to be true, but it's not. So the philosophy around building this new category of exchange, right? Or, you can think of like a poly market or a call sheet for sports. That is what we are trying to push. And that's almost like the way of life that we're trying to recreate in this industry. But people have been betting on sportsbooks for so long that it's hard to break that. So I'd say that's how, we think of things. That's how we are trying to push our vision. It's almost, we're not creating a product, we're creating a philosophy, a new way to think about this, right? And I'm happy to have you guys on the site and using it and stuck to it.
The interesting thing too is you're kind of in this like double new space, right? There's this like sweepstakes space, and maybe this is more like, this doesn't really pertain to on the user end of it, right? They're not necessarily affected by it. But the reality is, I don't think, like, we try to come on here and like the best we can to like grab people through the camera, shake them and be like, hey, you're in California, you're in Texas, you think that you're in a jail state, you can use ProfitX and bet on sports. Yeah, you might not have DraftKings and you might not have FanDuel, but like, if your goal is to bet on sports, and right now you're playing the game with, overseas, or your bookie, you got one of Connor's dudes who will shake you down if you don't pay. Like, those are not the dudes you want to be going with. You can get into a more, what is a actual regulated legal way to be betting on sports. How is that education piece in terms of a marketing thing? Like, how is that coming together? How is that a push, or is there like, parameters around what you guys can and can't do with the sweepstakes model?
I feel like I have questions for Connor, but for another time on the.
we can talk about offline. You just threw me under the bus a little bit, but I'm pretty open about it. My experiences are my experiences. So
I've been in that world too, so I hear you. But going back to what I said earlier, too good to be true. That's the second part of the education here. Like, it's not too good to be true. You can use this in states that don't have regulated, legalized betting, because it is not classified as that. It is classified as a sweepstakes company. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to talk about exactly why it is it is classified on here because I will fumble it maybe more than an attorney would. But that being said,
Smart man.
thank you. There is, you go onto the site and there's this free to play section of the site, right? Like you can play for free with points. You can buy more points. You can compete in contests that we have. And it is a popular section of the site. It's actually almost as used, if not more used in that segment than the sweepstakes side every day, or the real money USD side. So to that end, there's another element of education, right? Like, there are popular sportsbook competitors out there who are operating under the sweepstakes model. So, in that regard, it hasn't been as challenging for us as maybe we thought it might be, but there still is that element of distrust that people immediately come in because we are not regulated by a gaming body. And to that, I usually say, we were a regulated company. We know what it takes to be a regulated company. We've got all the policies and procedures in place that we did when we were regulated, and all the internal controls in place to make sure that your money is safe when we were regulated. So to that end, I'd say, please trust us. But obviously, this is why I like to talk on these shows, because people can put a face to the name and actually see that I'm not just some sort of, or our company isn't some sort of shady operation. This is a legitimate operation you can use in states that are not regulated. And by the way, it's an exchange, so it's a better product than the sportsbook at the end of the day.
That's one of the biggest points of not necessarily feedback, but just like things that we hear from people like trying out a new platform, because you have obviously instances in the industry where companies, weren't paying out, or, like people have come and go, or they've used offshores that have not worked out necessarily. And like people aren't necessarily sure what level, like what category these companies fall into. And I think being able to put a face to name is obviously super important. And also us telling them like, hey, we know these guys. We know that they've been around for a while. They know what they're doing. Like they're well backed. They're going to pay out, like things like that. Those matter. That matters so much to customers, because there's been so much. I mean, in the early days, especially with some of the DFS, I would say props plus companies, it hasn't always been the case. And I know you guys don't fall under that category specifically, but people just might not know that. And so I think that telling them that there's a difference, and that, again, you guys are well backed, and like, it's winners pay or losers pay winners, right? That's what we always come here and say, is like, it's an exchange model. It's a little bit different than normal. So I think that's a really, really fun point.
Yeah. And I guess it's almost like you're saying the quiet part out loud a little bit, and it's maybe something that people are uncomfortable talking about, but it's worthwhile speaking about, right? Because people have been burned in DFS plus, and even I guess you can call it quasi adjacent to our industry is crypto, right? Like people have burned on crypto exchanges too. So there's a lot of scars that people have now that there is a lot of distrust out there. So hopefully I'm here to curb that.
Yeah, no, I mean, even just coming on and talking for a little bit about whatever, I think helps no matter what. But I know Noonan has another question I'm going to steal, because I think this is a good one. So I see you have like futures on the site, right? You have like college football futures. You guys offer yes, no. I know that not many actually domestic sports books offer a no on stuff, but because you guys are an exchange, that's just generally how it works. Golf outrights, yes, no. Are you guys gonna be offering those? I would guess yes, and hope so, because I know for Noonan's sake, always looking to shop the best price, because sometimes those vary like crazy.
So this actually also ties into like what we have going on in the future. The short answer is yes. There will be golf outrights in the near future. And I hope that we will be able to tie it with a very unique product feature that we will have that is only akin to exchanges. So if you place action on, I don't know, let's just say Scotty to win a tournament. I was at the Hero World. I live in Florida. I flew down to the Hero World. I should have just put
a little trip down to the Bahamas for the weekend.
I just should have put every dollar I had on Scotty plus 240. I don't know why I didn't do that.
Yeah, someone asked me like risk-free bets, 3 risk-free bets. I'm like, just bet Scotty 3 times.
Exactly. One of them's going to hit greater than 3 to 1. He, for example, if you place action on him, let's just say at 5 to 1, and you put 100 profit cash down on that, you stand to win 500, right? If I then place another, if I want to put money on someone else, if I want to put money on someone, I don't know, at 10-1, let's say I put money on Rory at 10-1, my max win is 500 on those two guys, right? So then what I can do is start taking the no side on other guys, and no more money will come out of my wallet, because you can only stand to lose a maximum of $100 or $50 on those two guys. So you can start betting the no side for up to that amount of money, and you wouldn't have to put any more money into the site, if that makes any sense. So you can start like amassing a group of positions, and everything only operates off your net worst case scenario. And I know I might not have explained that the best. It's because it's a little confusing, but you can essentially have several positions and only have to put money down once, which is a really unique thing to exchanges. And in golf markets, that's where it excels.
That's
it is such a unique thing. That's why I wanted to ask about it, because from a liquidity standpoint, I need someone to have taken some sizable no action, right, for me to be able to get down on that too. So that's the interesting point. So it is maybe like a later in the weeks scenario, where it's like a lot of outright betting currently on domestic sites. It would be an early in the week, you get the best of the number, but maybe later in the week when more information comes in, you can change your position and maybe see how the board is going and see what's going on Profit X, because I think I've heard you talk about this in other places where it doesn't have to be a and or scenario. Like, it can be used in conjunction with what you do, in the sports betting market, in domestics, right? You can use the exchange in a way to kind of diversify your portfolio and find ways to have more outs, where we're kind of covering your butt. I think we're kind of talking about there with the way the exchange
exactly
works.
Yeah, there's no limiting there. We never ban people. So we'll always be, I like to market it to sharper guys as a permanent out, because we're just an intermediary. But on your point on liquidity, if someone is taking your no, if you're betting on yes, one golfer to win a golf tournament, someone else is taking the no side, right? And the feature that I just described, it's going to be far more likely that someone takes your no action, because it's a lot easier for that person to take no action, because they don't have to bet no on 15, 20 guys and constantly have to put money into the site for all those 15 to 20 guys. They can just start layering up a position of, all right, I'll take a max loss of $500 on any of these guys, because only one guy is going to win the tournament, right? Two of them can't win the tournament, so they don't have to put more than $500 down on that.
Connor is going to be in there shorting golf winners all season long. This sounds like your dream world. It's just guys not to win.
Yeah, just laying whatever juice it takes on guys not to win. It always reminds me of like the Rufus Peabody portfolios that he tweets out, of like his nose on things that are like minus 8,000. And then I think he lost one like somewhat recently, maybe the last couple of months, and everyone was ripping on it for it. But I mean, he's like one of the best bettors, at least publicly, of all time. So, I think he knows what he's doing for the most part. So figuring out how to use that and leverage it in the Profit X space sounds incredible. That's pretty exciting actually for me. I'm not going to lie. Laying all the no's there sounds great.
Yeah,
just lay no on Rory in any major tournament. That should be a pretty good.
It could be. Yeah, probably been profitable for a decade for sure. One of the question that I want, kind of touching base on this too, and it matters a ton to us. We'll continue to and the partnership matters to us too, right? Because to Connor's point, we've had a lot of DFS plus partners over the years, and there's not a lot of things that we actually use and can get behind and really believe that can be transformative in the space. And we have a partnership. Yeah, you're on the show. We actually believe that this is something that can really change things for the better in the industry. More opportunities, more outs, and the limit piece obviously is fantastic, and pricing matters a ton. You got to see the FanDuel earning reports come out, and you see the insane, I don't know, shit ton is the only word I can think of. Same game parlays that is 65% of their profits there. It is kind of probably what we would assume, but to see it is insane. And that's got to tell you at a certain point, especially for the casuals, which make up a share of our audience too, price isn't the only thing that matters. So I've seen, there's a parlay specials tab. I know there's player props in there as well, which is obviously something that we like to get down on. How do you capture new players to try the exchange model when price alone isn't a driving force for them?
Yeah, I love this question. First of all, price matters. It also doesn't matter, right? When it comes to these products, I think they're so popular because they're just really fun, right? Like, the lottery has existed for over 100 years because it's really fun. This is basically just buying lottery tickets, at least in my opinion. What is the hold? 30% on these SGPs? I think FanDuel's reforecasted their annual hold on handle to, I've seen upwards of 14, 15, 16% in some states. It's insane. I've never seen that. Like this industry standard used to be 6-7%, but now it's crazy. But anyway, number one, our props product is going to be, give it 6 weeks, is going to be incredible. I'd say right now I think it's okay. I don't think it's amazing yet. We are getting a lot of prop volume, which is really exciting. Like it's approaching almost 50% of our volume. But in January, once we have a couple of service providers come in and provide more liquidity to those markets, that is probably the next most exciting thing that we've got going on. And then we're building around our unique selling prop, right? Like if you've ever come on the site and requested a price or set your own odds, there's friction around it right now. So we're building out features to make it really easy to edit it, just right in your slip, not having to cancel your position and put it back up, just being able to do it like right then and there, being able to move your price more easily. And then also being able to, like let's say there's $50 of liquidity available and you want to put down $100 instead of getting filled for 50 and keeping 50 open, having that 100 get filled at the next best price instantly. So giving a lot of people options there. I will say there's also some other products we're exploring. I can't talk about it just yet on the show, but kind of like I said earlier, we have invented a new category, right? So building around the features, why people, our thousands of customers are using them, is what we're leaning into right now. But the prop stuff is personally what I'm most excited for, because you're going to see a menu for the NFL playoffs, hopefully, that is pretty extraordinary.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great to hear. Obviously, we mentioned we love props. We bet on those. I would say a good bit more than sides and totals at this point, but obviously dabble in both. I guess last question I had here. I know we've gone, run through 15, 20 minutes here without even hitting all the questions that we were discussing here. But last one I had that I thought was interesting. So you guys offer the best prices virtually on everything. How often do people buy points on ProfitX? Considering when you buy a point, it's kind of like similar to the standard line on most other places. So like you're getting basically like a similar price to those on that. Like, is that how popular of a feature is that? And is it even like considered buying points, I guess, in this instance? I don't know. It's like, because it's a little slider, for those who we show it every week, and I'll show it after Dean hops off here when we talk about our games. But like, how popular is that? I guess I would say
on the main lines, it's very popular. On the props, I was actually talking to Andy about this. For props, people didn't realize it was there. There's a lot of the feedback that I've gotten, so it hasn't been as popular as main lines. But that carousel, I love that carousel. Just being able to just navigate 15 lines at a time on one outcome is fantastic. I would say last I checked, 15 to 20% of volume on those types of positions comes in on alternates, is what I call them, buying points for the old school bookie type customers out there. I still call it that. But on all the alternates, I'd say 15 to 20%. On props, it's a little more difficult because it's almost harder to, like, for example, on a running back total, I saw Rico Dowdle's total Monday night between 63 and 69.5, right? So like getting action on each one of those half points between 63 and 69.5 is a little harder when you have a community of 10,000 or so people. But on a main line, when you're just looking at all the key numbers, it's a lot easier to get action down on those, right? So I think that's partly why the main lines get more popularity on the alts. But that being said, come January, I hope that is different in the prop market.
Props are so volatile too. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm not sure anyone would want to buy like Pollard 71 yards, but maybe they're interested in 99 yards or like, over 99 yards or over like 25 yards, and like paying like out the ass for it. But I think that's in my mind where like prop alts are super interesting, especially if you're getting better prices.
Totally agree, because books don't have that, right? They have their 50-50 line, their -110 line, and then they have like key numbers that they define, so like 50 plus, 75 plus, 100 plus, whereas like we have every half yard between 10 yards,
and they kill you and hold for those prices. Like, I mean, just terrible prices for the most part. And one book actually had the alt unders and they removed them this year. So pretty sad about that. Noonan knows that I love my prop unders. So that was pretty disappointing, to be honest. But
why take a guy for under 25 when you can take it for under 12 and a half?
It's true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at. But that was all the questions I had. Noonan, anything last things from you?
No, I'll have to circle back and have Dean on again, because I think we could have touched on 4 or 5 more topics or expanded on that for sure. But yeah, we're stoked to see what comes of January with the prop market changes that you're talking about. And we're going to continue to champion your site, because I think it's really cool and people need to check it out. So ProfitX in the App Store, use promo code BetSperts when you're signing up. Does us a favor, supports the show. But again, who cares? Get on ProfitX. Again, losers, we print the shirts, Dean. Losers play winners. Hoodies, hats. I
gotta get you guys some merch.
It's a great way to brand it. Yeah. Appreciate
you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll circle back and have you on again soon for sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye. Yeah, I mean, like I said there, we've had a lot of deals over the years. Some we don't always use, some of them don't always pay us, right? The reality is I think this is it is a unique thing in the space for us domestically. You touched on how they started the exchange and had to go overseas, and that's a market that's used to the exchange market. And maybe the exchange word is a word that there's got negative connotation to it, and people think of it as something different than it is. But it's simply peer-to-peer, right? I want to take Seattle at home this week, and Connor wants the Packers. Well, we don't have to just bet that separately over on DraftKings. We could take each other's action and each get a better price. So that when, whoever wins, we were paying less to the site, to the provider, and more of it's going into the winner's pocket. So it's just that simple. So questions, reach out to us. We're going to continue to talk about it, because it's where the best prices lay. And if you're betting sides and totals, you need to check it out. So, all right, buddy, let's get into some of the games. There's a handful we'll buzz through here. I know we're short on time, but a couple of the key games that I think are noteworthy for the week. There's some really impactful ones in terms of playoff positioning. None more so than the Indy at Denver game. Again, this is kind of the late window, looking domestically, about 3.5, 4 on the Broncos side at home. Total out there between 44 and a half or so. And if you can bring up the ProfitX screen here too, we could see what we can get shopping wise there. Both teams coming off of a bye, which, sucks for them. You have the late season bye. You don't even get the rest advantage because both teams are there. Yeah, you can see here, totals got a pretty good price. You can get, 3.5 on Indy at plus 102. You're not getting that anywhere else. So that's a really nice number. But, what are your thoughts here? Again, this is again, I talk about the leverage here. It's not a shoo-in, but basically if Denver wins here, it's going to get real hard for anyone else to take that last spot in the playoffs. You kind of have the Chargers in Denver, 6 and 7. Chargers also have a game here against Tampa Bay this week that I think is interesting and has some playoff implications for both conferences. But Indy kind of dead if they lose this one. Things are getting tough for, obviously, the Bengals are way out of it. Miami kind of holding out hope. But Denver kind of locks things up here for the most part if they can win here. What are your thoughts on Indy, Denver?
Yeah, I don't have too much on this game specifically, to be honest, but I do think that Indy's going to struggle to run the ball here, and that puts a lot of pressure on Anthony Richardson, and that's not where you want to be. And on the other hand, here we have Bo Nix, I think, really coming into his own second half of the season, and in a spot here against an Indy defense that I think has been, incredibly average in a lot of metrics. The Denver running game, again, I mean, also probably not something that they're going to be able to lean on, but that's been fine. They've had no problem just putting Bo Nix back there and throwing the ball 40 times. I mean, it's going to be like 48-yard, slants and curls and things like that. But that's okay. He's accurate. He's putting the ball where it needs to be. And, Cortland Sutton, the guy that you've bet on multiple times, has been playing a lot better. And then obviously Devon Bailey, I think, has come into his own a little bit. And they're using some of the speedy guys, Mims and Franklin, like as field stretchers to, I mean, they don't ever complete the long shots, but sometimes they're there and they open up the field for guys. So I think that Denver is probably my side here. I don't necessarily love laying 3.5 here. And it looks like there's no liquidity on 3 specifically, but 3.5 minus 110 isn't terrible. So I'm a little bit more on Denver here. I know you're probably going to tell me though that you're back in Indy one more time, right?
I like the Colts. Yeah, I do.
There we go. Okay.
I like the points. So Denver likes to play man. They like to blitz their face off. The one thing that Anthony Richardson did well in college and has continued to do well in the NFL is avoid sacks. Part of it is I want to see the offensive line coming out of the bye for Indy. They've had some injuries kind of limping into the bye, but Indy +4 here at -106 is really, really appealing. I think you're going to see some splash runs from Richardson here to avoid pressure. So Josh Downs comes back. I think that helps them quite a bit. Been able to pick on Denver in the slot. If Denver doesn't have Riley Moss, we saw what happened going into the bye with how the Browns were able to pick on Levi Wallace, who is as dusty as they get in the secondary. Yeah. So if we get another full game start from Levi Wallace with Downs back in coming off of a bye, Indy at 4 would be my play. So there's some injury news there on both sides that I think matters, but definitely would be lean Indy for me.
Yeah. If Josh Downs plays, I think it definitely matters. Michael Pittman still sucks at this point, considering
he's hurt, man. He's hurt.
Yeah, like he's hurt. I mean, he's just like he's hurt. He's running like Jason Witten out there. It's like it's brutal. Maybe the bye made him get better too. Like I'm not going to be. Well, I might be fading him. That's not a guarantee. We'll see what his number comes out at. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, and if they're healthy, if it's Moss and Patrick Surtain, that would matter too. So I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Under 40 yards, I can already pencil that in. We'll see.
Yeah, the other really good one on this was a few good ones. Buffalo, Detroit. I think obviously potential Super Bowl matchup here, where the Lions are 2.5 point favorites basically across the board. Healthy total, 53.5, 54.5. Which matters. I mean, 54, kind of a key number. So shop that around if you have a preference at all. I think you're going to see some interesting matchups in terms of how these two teams can both win offensively. When you have a team that's really can commit to the run and do it really well against Buffalo, that's been a problem for them. That I think that will be the question that they have to answer down the stretch. It is something that the Lions are willing and able to do proficiently with volume, with explosiveness. That's going to be a tough part here for Buffalo. And then in another scenario where you have a team that has to rely on getting creative, generating pressure from the second level, blitzing at a really high rate against Superman, that would make me very nervous as well. So what are your thoughts here on probably one of the best games of the season, Bills-Lions?
I think you laid it out great because the Lions here, I mean, I think both offenses have a good amount of success here. This Lions team last week, we were on, some Josh Jacobs overs against them because their entire front seven is basically out. They just loaded the box. I mean, they just put like literally everyone in there and dared Jordan Love to beat him deep. And he kind of did, but like they just like were refusing to allow them to commit to the run here. And I think against Josh Allen and the Bills, that's potentially more of a problem because I think we've seen Josh Allen just execute more, on deeper downfield plays or like if they want to hold the box against Josh Allen, I don't think that that's going to really work all that well because the Bills have had no problem being like, all right, we're just not going to run it instead. Now that's gotten them into some hot water, but I don't think that that's going to matter as much here in this spot. And then on the other side of the ball, like you said, like Detroit's going to be able to run the ball probably as much as they want, considering how strong their running game is. And we also just saw, the Rams just dropped 40 on them. Obviously Jared Goff is not Matthew Stafford and Puka and Kupp are a little bit different. the Lions have plenty of wagons on their own end. So I struggle to see a way, which this is not a pretty high scoring game. Now, a lot of that's reflected in the market already. We're looking at like 54, 54 and a half. So you're not getting any discounts on that. I'm just interested. I'm honestly, this might just be a game where I bet on some props and just like hang out, or just not even bet it at all and just watch it, because I kind of want to bet like Buffalo at 2.5, but not enough to play it. If it was ever 3, I'd probably play Buffalo. I'm not super stoked to bet on Detroit, just because, again, they're so beat up front. Like, just, I think they got one of their defensive linemen practice today, so he's like trending in the right direction. But again, we're talking about like him and Jack Campbell, and then the rest are like, it was like Dan Campbell's cousin was playing defensive lineman, and like, you know, all these bums, like just literally, and they did a good job. But again, because they had like 8 guys in the box every play. So
yeah, it's a game for props for sure. Live opportunities. I mean, it was some of my bigger wins last weekend were live Josh Allen rushing, live Amari Cooper, who dropped to like 31.5 receiving yards midway through the first quarter. And it was like, well, I don't know. They're going to be out there throwing again. He like by halftime had like 60 something. So like there could be some opportunities where if Detroit pushes Buffalo, like I think we think they're going to, then all of a sudden you just have a different version of the Bills than we've seen all season long, which from a prop standpoint can be pretty dynamic when you have a Josh Allen who's willing to scramble, willing to push the ball down the field. So yeah, it's going to be a great football game. Kind of in that zone where like I can tease it through the 3 and the 7, but also like Detroit scares the crap out of you. And, you know, that would make me nervous too. So yeah, I don't know about that one. How about Pennsylvania? Big game in Pennsylvania, Steelers, Eagles, 5.5 on the Eagles side. Total's healthy as well. Not too bad. 42. A lot of drama in Philly for a team that's won a bunch in a row. Do we have squeaky wheel AJ Brown this week? What are your thoughts on, AJ Brown, or what are your thoughts on fraudulent Steelers against your Super Bowl champ Eagles?
Yeah, I think that there's some underrated news here with George Pickens still not practicing. Yep. I mean, this passing game was like lost last week. I mean, they were really bad. Like Russell Wilson couldn't complete any of the chain moving stuff. All of his little, like, what do they call them? Moon shots or whatever, like moon balls. None of them were even close because they're just not on the same page. And Mike Williams probably just sucks at this point in his career. Like, in my opinion, the offense, the passing game, like, looked pretty broken. Now you're getting a much tougher matchup this week against the Eagles, who, I mean, outside of, I think a couple blips here and there, have largely played great pass defense. So I don't know. I really struggled to see how they succeed there. I think we're going to see a lot of running the ball from the Steelers. And on the other side here, like, yes, the Steelers defense is good. I don't know if they're good enough to slow down this Philly running game. And I don't know if the passing game can get back on track specifically in this spot, but force feeding AJ Brown is a pretty good place to start. My guy, Jalen Hurts, has not played particularly well, down the stretch here, but he hasn't really needed to. So I like Philly here, honestly. I mean, we're looking at -5.5, -103. I mean, 5.5, 5, 4.5, all kind of like dead. So instead of laying 4.5, I think rather just go up to 5.5 and get -103 here. 350 in liquidity is pretty solid too. So I don't know. I think the Eagles could win in a big way here against the Steelers team that, again, like if they're locking down Russ and maybe they like slow down the run game a little bit or just get a couple stops, like this game could be pretty lopsided.
I'm with you. I like it. I like less than 6. -103 is beautiful. So yeah, Philly or nothing for me for sure. And it seems like Pickens is not playing based off of some early discussions there. So again, a team that is, probably managing one of their star players moving forward for a playoff run. Hamstrings can be pretty temperamental. So you want to probably err on the side of caution with Pickens, make sure he's good for whatever comes of, late December, January football for Pittsburgh, who is going to be involved in late December, January football, as much as I begrudgingly want to pretend it's not going to happen. So yeah, Philly less than 6, I think is the right play. Last one I want to talk real quick about. Packers are on the road in Seattle. Seattle again just continues to win. They are dogs though at home. Green Bay making the trip to the Pacific Northwest and laying 2 to 3 in some spots. 45, 46 is the total here. Yeah, I'm interested to see this matchup. I'm on the Steelers. I mean, I'm on the Seahawks at home. I think that's getting points. I think is really interesting. I think they're a fantastic teaser leg. I would like to see Kenneth Walker, but your boy Charbonnet was was pretty nice last week. You jumped into some early sharp stuff that carried your week for sure, but he seemed to have a pulse that we hadn't seen early in the season. But yeah, I'm just really bullish on what this Seattle defense is doing. And I think they're going to give some looks to Jordan Love that have him turn the football over and create some shorter fields for this offense.
Yeah, I also like Seattle here. I think that just they're coming together. I think it's coming together at the right time. I think this Green Bay defense is just very much fine, in my opinion. They're overrated in a lot of like EPA metrics just because they turn the ball over a ton. I'm not sure that's super sticky on a play-by-play basis. So I kind of want to fade them a little bit here. And Seattle getting the running game going last week was awesome. Charbonnet he had 3 carries for 4 yards in the first quarter. And so to Noonan's point here real quick, I was actually at the sim with Steve and I had the notification on my watch that I was like, Kenneth Walker downgraded from limited practice on Wednesday to Thursday, DNP. So I just immediately picked up my phone. We stopped the round and I was like, bet every Zach Charbonnet over that you can get. So I was just ripping like them for like 3 minutes until they yanked him off the board. And I got like over 16, 30, 40, 50. And obviously hit that on one run. But again, 3 carries for 4 yards, no room to run. This McIntosh guy was coming in like ripping like 10, 15-yard runs. I'm like, oh, I'm for sure losing this. Like, this guy sucks. And then he just rips like another 125 yards the rest of the game. So shout out Zach Charbonnet, made my week. Thankfully, otherwise I might be in Seattle right now, just like living in a box on the side of the street after how the rest of the week went. Otherwise, it was brutal. So, yeah. And point being, I like Seattle here. +3, -116 at Profit Exchange is not bad. This is what I'm saying with like the buying point stuff. Like you can get half a point and it's like -116. Like every prop that I bet is -116. Like, what I mean? Like, this is like feels like nothing. Whereas like
it's a crucial half point.
Yeah, it's a big half point. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a really good question. I think in general, people probably shouldn't be, to your point, buying points on props.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know it's not super efficient unless you're doing what you're talking about, where we like to do the large alts or alt unders, right? Where you're taking a guy who's at like, mid 60s or 70 and saying, no, I think he goes for a bill, right? That's different than like, I want to just kind of finagle within the small little band. They're just not that efficient. Whereas we know that this is a more efficient market. So yeah, that's a great call out. I mean, 3 is a big deal to go from 2.5 to 3, and you typically have to pay a lot more than this for it. So yeah, Seattle's a side for me. I like them getting points. Again, another great teaser leg to get them through the 3 and the 7, getting, 8.5 at home, where I think they're really live to win outright, I think is a pretty nice spot to be in. So yeah, I'm bullish on Seattle to continue to be. And again, it's a tough schedule. So I think they're going to get playoff tested as they kind of, can they answer the bell down the stretch here?
I know we're going long, but I got just one more fun one.
Sure.
Chiefs Browns over. This is going to be just another peak Jameis game here. Like we're getting pass funnel defense that hasn't really played all that well for the last month plus at this point. They played fine against the Chargers, but they didn't have McConkey. Will Dissly got hurt. He was throwing to Stone Smart, had like 90 yards. They still weren't even pressuring Herbert that much. He would have thrown for 350 if McConkey and Dissly played. Jameis is going to have to chuck the ball here again. Like I just can't imagine a scenario unless the Chiefs offense like really stinks that Jameis isn't throwing the ball like 40 plus times here, which leads to either big plays and touchdowns or pick sixes and mistakes, both of which help the over. So yeah, I think that over is pretty fun. It's like 45 and a half is what I was seeing specifically, but that's kind of like a fun over, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What's 40? Do you see 43 and a half?
42 and a half here. Yeah. It looks like someone bought back on it like mid show or like right before the show. Yeah. 43 and a half -113.
That's great.
Yeah. That seems pretty solid here.
Yeah. 44 again, kind of covers, 24-20 type of scenario. And that's kind of where your implied totals would be considering, we have a 4-point spread. So yeah, if the Lord didn't actually deliver him from the pick sixes, he just gave him a week off. It brings it back into play for sure, and that matters. That's, I guess, early in the week, and I haven't looked. That Cleveland wind can be a thing, so would want to know more information on that. But yeah, I'm with you on all things passing game for Cleveland in this spot for sure. I like it quite a bit. Also, I have 6.5 in Minnesota against the Bears. I kind of like that too. I'm nervous about Caleb against this defense. I'm very nervous for for what they're doing. He's just holding on the ball too long. I was looking at it today. The only guys that will have a longer time to throw against pressure than Caleb are Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. They've combined been sacked 54 times on the season. Caleb by himself has been sacked 55 times this season. So while he's mobile and can kind of create and do some stuff, it's just eating too many sacks, and those are absolute drive killers. So less than 7 on the Minnesota side, I think is pretty interesting. I think they are continue to be underrated, but still very much have number 1 seed in the conference to play for. They can win the division still. So I think you're going to get Minnesota's best effort here in this spot against a Bears team that's going to struggle to protect their quarterback who loves to take sacks.
The Bears are just quitting, man. Like, this is like pathetic. Just
Quiet quitting. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah. I don't even know if it's quiet though. Like, they're just like, everyone's quitting on the season.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like DJ Moore's quit for like 2 months, but like Rome Odunze and his dad are just popping off on socials.
I know.
The O-line sucks. Thomas Brown, I mean, he's just now, again, another placeholder on just a deadbeat team. Like, it wouldn't surprise me just to see them run the ball and get out of games. Like, at this point, like, it's just protect Caleb going to next season. Thomas Brown will get fired and have a nice little salary to sit on probably, and then go from there.
Yeah. Don't get Caleb hurt for next year, but yeah, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay is your 4 stretch to finish for the Bears. So the toast against teams that really need to win those football games. There could be some like just kind of attack the Bears in the market down the stretch could be probably a pretty interesting way to go about it. So, everybody, good stuff as always. Enjoyed having Dean on. Again, check out ProfitX. Go to the App Store, download the app, take advantage. Like you said, if you are in Florida when you got Hard Rock, and you're in Texas or California or some of these other states that are, do not have legal sports betting, the sweepstakes model is a loophole. I don't know, like Dean said, it's probably a topic for another day. I don't know the logistics or legalities of it, but the reality is it is sports betting and it is legal in your state. Download the app. If you have questions, let us know. Happy to help you through that. But again, head over to 4for4.com/plans, get the betting sub, get in our Discord, get all the plays. It's going to be a big bounce back week for Connor. I could feel the Jameis alts and ladders coming in. We're going to keep the ball rolling here. Come check it out. Again, we appreciate your time. Subscribe wherever you're listening or watching on the 4for4bets YouTube channel. Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. Come back on Friday with High Slop to do props. So for Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, everybody.